that kind of stuff. But hello, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I'm sure a few people will trickle in, and if you trickle out, that's fine too. Small group, so we'll just kind of we'll cover some information with you guys. Feel free to ask plenty of questions, and we'll cover as much as we can. Just so you guys know, I always like to let people know when I'm recording things. This is going on YouTube, so any questions that you might ask will be recorded, that kind of thing. So if you're sensitive to that, just know that that is happening. So to start, actually, tonight, we're going to have a little presentation from Christopher Old is here. He's from Sierra College up in Truckee. And I'll let him further introduce himself, but he'll walk through his presentation, and I'll be here to kind of give some additional information as well as kind of I can from the school perspective. But he's got all the great pertinent information about Sierra College in particular, but also about all the different community colleges around the state. All right, so if you want to, you can use that to move forward if you want. We'll see if it works. There we go. All right.
So hello. As Jeff mentioned, I'm Christopher Old, and I'm the counselor at Sierra College. I also am a psychology professor there as well. And so kind of my hope tonight is to, one, talk a little bit about college in general and help give you information that you can use to get your students excited about college. And then also talk about community college and Sierra College specifically, and give you some of the details about that as well. But what I encourage you to do, for those of you that aren't students right now, take yourself back to that time when you were a junior or a senior in high school and think about how did you feel about college, right, at that moment. And you may have felt like this. You may have felt a little overwhelmed and be like, oh my gosh, I'm just finishing high school, really, college? You know, or you might have felt like this. You might have felt kind of sad thinking, you know, I really love to go to college, but there's no way I could possibly do it, or that my family could afford it, or that kind of thing. You might have felt like this. You might have some fear. You might be like, oh my God, college, I don't know. I don't know what's in store. You know, a lot of times people are left feeling like this, kind of scratching their heads. There's a lot of information out there, and I don't know exactly what direction to go, or what are all the steps I need to take, and that kind of thing. My hope is that where you end up, where your students end up, is really excited about it. And I imagine because you all are here, you're already interested and excited about having the students go to college. But sometimes it's also helpful to have some of that information that you can use in those discussions, you know, with your children, trying to get them excited about college as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So just kind of looking at why go to college, you know, some of the value in college. So these are our statistics on average yearly pay rates based on education level. And as you can see, education does pay. You know, here you have the level for a high school graduate at about $30,000 a year. An associate's degree, so if you get a 2-year degree like from Sierra College, that average goes up to $40,000 a year. You know, a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree, goes up to about $50,000 a year. And those are averages in our country. Everybody always has that story of the person who's the outlier, right? Who said, well, yeah, I know so-and-so who never went to college and they're a millionaire, right? And there are certainly those stories, right? But when you look at averages, education really does pay off. Also, times people think about, gosh, it's expensive to go to college. If you put that in perspective of yearly income, it's actually one of the best investments, you know, you could make. If someone said, hey, you know, if you'll pay $10,000 for the next 2 years, I'll give you $10,000 for the next 45 years. Most of us would say, wow, that's a really good deal. I'm going to take that. Right? And that's what the numbers will show. This is similar data on this side. It's looking at weekly earnings versus yearly earnings, and you'll see the same thing that education pays. But I want to put this up for this side over here, which is unemployment rates. And one of the things that we also know is that the lower the level of education, the higher the unemployment. And so whether it's right or not, whether it's fair or not, the reality is that every time the economy takes a big downturn, the first people to lose their jobs are the ones with the lowest education. And so there's a little bit of kind of an insurance policy that goes with having a higher level of education when it comes to employment. So those are kind of the statistical reasons why to go to college. But I think there's a lot more to college than just that, than just your earning potential when you get out. There's a lot to college in terms of social and emotional growth. There are very few times in your life after college, and you all are probably well aware of this, where you will be surrounded by the opportunity to connect with so many people that are of a similar age, possibly diverse backgrounds, lots of different interests. And so college is one of those places to try on different social hats and learn a lot about emotional growth and that kind of thing. And I think that outweighs almost all the other benefits of college. So just to make sure we're all kind of on the same idea, the same lingo, when we talk about different levels of education, this pyramid kind of shows these levels of education. Starting down here with getting a certificate, which is basically saying that you've taken a group of classes in one subject and you have some expertise in that subject. So for example, we have an accounting certificate. It's a series of 5 accounting classes. And then you move up to your associate's degree, Associates of Arts, Associates of Science degree. Those are your 2-year degree. And when we say 2-year and 4-year, that's if you're a full-time student. And those are the 2 that you can get at the community college level. You can get certificates and you can get associate's degrees. Then you need to go up to a university or a 4-year college in order to get a bachelor's degree, which is the next level up. And then it has to be at a university in order to get master's and PhDs. And so we're talking about community college. We're talking about the bottom part of this pyramid in terms of degrees. But a lot of people use this as a starting point to continue to climb the pyramid. So why community college versus a 4-year college? There are tremendous benefits to both, and I'm not to say that anybody should go to one or the other, but there are some differences. One of the big differences tends to be cost. And so this is public 2-year in-state tuition, right? It tends to be around $1,000 to $1,500. Public 4-year goes up that $9,000 mark. So this is 2004, 2005 in blue, and 2013, 14 in red. So you go from $1,500 up to $9,000. If you go to 4-year privates, you're looking at $36,000 a year difference. But so a lot of our students come to us for the first 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year degree. And when you have your 4-year degree from Berkeley, nobody knows when you have that degree whether you started somewhere else and ended up there or whether that's where you were the whole time. And on average, students can save plus or minus $15,000 by starting at community college. So that's one of the other reasons that a lot of students go to community colleges. It gives you a lot of options. Right? As I mentioned, there are those certificates and there are the associate's degrees, but it also is a stepping stone for people to move on from there. And we have lots of students that come to us and then go to UNR or go to Chico is another big place that students go, but we have students that go all over. We have students that go to Berkeley. We have lots of students that go to Sac State, different places. And so there is always that option. This I thought was a really interesting statistic that I hadn't really realized until I started working as a counselor at a community college, that 1 in 3 students at a UC started at a community college. So other differences, other reasons the community college might be the right fit, has to do with the instructors. Most of our instructors, especially here in the Truckee campus, have jobs in the career that they're teaching in, as opposed to doing research in the career they're teaching in and teaching about it. They also are in the field all the time and working in it. So for instance, you may recognize the Truckee police chief. He teaches some of our administration and justice classes. Our psychology classes are taught by people who are either currently practicing as therapists or have practiced as therapists. We have a mechatronics class, and our mechatronics instructor is an electrical engineer who is out working in the field all the time. And so that's one of the other differences that you tend to find, is that people that are teaching at community colleges tend to still have their hands actively in the field, where sometimes at 4-year universities, big universities, they're more doing research about the field and teaching about it, but not necessarily in the field as much. Why Sierra College, and especially the Tahoe Truckee campus, this is one of the big differences as well, is that this is our classroom versus this. So if you take, say, Introduction to Psychology, a really popular first-year college class, If you take it here in Truckee, you will probably have about 15 students in the class with you. You'll have the exact same curriculum, you'll have the exact same level of rigor, exact same expectations because it is a transferable class, but you won't be sitting in a lecture hall with 400 students. So that's a big difference, and that's another reason a lot of students do thrive. And it depends. Some students thrive in this environment, and that's great. But if you have a student who prefers that smaller class size and that more individual attention, community college can be a great direction to go. That personal attention happens outside the classroom more as well. One of the things that I hear students say over and over is they're amazed at how accessible the instructors are. Because we're right there, and there's just this small group. Everybody has office hours. You don't have a line of students out the door waiting to get in for office hours, and you get your 10 minutes, right? It's a lot more flexible in that, and the faculty do spend a lot of time connecting with the students. One of the things, sometimes you'll hear a rumor about community college that the instructors maybe weren't good enough instructors to teach at a university and that kind of thing. And I'd love to put those rumors to rest. And just to give some examples, for instance, Kurt Heisinger here, here's our business professor. He's holding up a textbook there for managerial accounting. That's the textbook he wrote. And that textbook's used all over the country. And so, he's definitely an expert in that field. He's choosing to teach at community college because he loves community college. And so we have a lot of people who are experts in their field. We also have a lot of our instructors live here and are part of our community, and so they understand students that are coming from our community really well. One of the other things you all may or may not know about Sierra College is that we're a small satellite campus of a bigger school. And so we have about 600 to 700 students at the Truckee campus here. The main campus is down in Rockland, and there's about 20,000 students down in Rockland. And then there's another campus in Grass Valley, which I think is about 3,000 students or so. And so we're definitely this small satellite campus. The nice thing about that is it gives us that small school feel. But the good thing about being connected to the bigger campus is we have all the resources of the big campus. For example, this is the library down in Rockland. That whole building is the library. Our library is twice the size of this room here in Truckee, but we have access to everything in that library. And so we have all those different resources. This is actually a map of the Rockland campus. So the Rockland campus has our sports teams, our football team, all that kind of stuff is all down there. So up here we have that nice small feel, but we have this resources of this larger school. So to give you an idea of what students can study up here, this is our list of majors, and you may have picked it up off the table over there. These are the majors that you can complete the entire major taking classes on the Truckee campus. So without having to take online classes or without having to go down to Rockland. And so we have a significant number of majors that you can complete up here. If students are willing to take some online or can go to Rockland for some of their classes, then this is the total list of Sierra College majors. So you can see it's quite an extensive list of things that students can study. So that's a little information about the college. Couple things to tell students about. One of the things I really try to bring home to students is the importance of getting involved once you get to school. So right now, everybody's kind of in that place of what school am I going to go to and how am I going to sort that out. But also, it's important to be thinking about what am I going to do once I get there. And on our campus, we really encourage students to get involved. We had started doing an on-campus orientation for new students, which isn't really about learning about the campus because it takes 5 minutes to learn about the one building, right? But it's really about connecting with other students and learning about the resources that are available because we do have a ton of resources. We also have a mentor program, and that mentor program connects new students with faculty members. So that they automatically have that one-on-one connection, that person they can go to if they have questions that come up, about a whole variety of things. We also do have campus clubs. We have an outdoor club. We had a mindfulness club last semester. We have a business club. We had a disc golf club for a while. If you didn't know, we have one of the best disc golf courses in the state of California on our campus. Have tournaments there and that kind of thing. We have a lot of support. We have free tutoring for students. Any student that's a Sierra College student can get tutoring for free. We have both student tutors, people who've already taken that class and did really well in that class to help out, as well as faculty tutors, and there's also online tutoring available for students. How many of you are familiar with the Academic Enrichment Program at Sierra College? Sort of? Yeah, so what the Academic Enrichment Program is it's a program where any high school student in our school district can take classes at Sierra College for free and get college credit for them, as long as they pass the class. And so for some students, that makes a lot of sense. There's some advantages to it in terms of you get dual credit, so you get credit to help you graduate from high school as well as getting college credit. And that can really make it easier to graduate from college on time. You may have seen some of the statistics about how few students actually graduate with a 4-year degree in 4 years. But going into school already having some academic credits can really help. We had one student that took so many academic enrichment classes that she started as a sophomore when she started college and finished in 3 years because she pretty much had an entire year's worth of credits done. And so sometimes students who are accelerated and really want to kind of get that extra credit and do that will take the academic enrichment program. But also we've had students that were struggling in the high school environment for whatever reason. And there's a whole host of reasons, that sometimes people struggle, and decided to try taking a class over there and saw a difference in the environment because it is a college environment. So it's mostly adults, and there's freedom that's different, and sometimes that turns students around to get really excited about school again when maybe they were burned out on high school. And so sometimes that can be another advantage to it. In terms of the academic enrichment program, I think it was up on there, the steps to do that, the first step is to meet with Mr. Ream and talk to him, make sure that whatever class they're interested in taking fits with the high school schedule and is appropriate. And then there's a form to fill out that the counselor here signs saying, yes, you have permission to take it. And then you come over and start the registration process with us. So how to register for classes at Sierra College. This is our homepage. This little apply for summer fall button. No matter what page on our website you go to, this little button stays. And so you just click on that button and it starts you through the registration process or the application process. It's called an application, but everybody who applies gets in. So it's not a selective application type of thing. And so really it is just going through the steps and filling it out and then becoming a student.
That is the same thing if you're a senior too, and you're going to be applying for like fall next year as well. You go through the same, similar process, no form from me, but similar process with that application.
Right. If you're not doing the academic enrichment program, you just want to become a student, you start at the same place. So this is that process kind of laid out. You complete that application online. You would submit your transcripts. The transcripts help place English and math classes, but also you can get credit for if you had AP classes or that kind of thing. And then there's a portal for the college. It's called My Sierra. And that is where you get your grades, where you register for classes, where you do everything that has to do with your college life and your classes. And so you would activate that. There's an online orientation students do, which is basically watching a video. And then depends on class you're trying to get into. You can either place into a class based on your high school record, or you can take an assessment test and based on the results of that assessment test place in. And that's mainly in English and math. Because we want to make sure that students that are going into college level math and college level English are ready for it. And if not, there are developmental classes to get them ready for it. Then meet with a counselor, especially if you are starting as a college student, if you finished high school. Really recommend you come in and sit down with me, and then I can go through and create an education plan and say, okay, here's what we can do to get you to your goal, whatever your goal might be. Question?
If you're in the academic enrichment already, do you have to redo the paperwork here every semester?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You do. Other questions? This last step, sometimes students forget. You have to then register for the class. So just applying and saying that you're coming doesn't get you into the class. You need to go into your My Sierra and then register for the class. We've had students forget that sometimes and then show up the first day and go, wait, why aren't I in this class?
Does enrollment fill up?
Yes.
Good question, and yes, it does. Not as quickly as might be the case on other campuses. So oftentimes you can get into a class closer to the beginning of the class on this campus easier than you can on other campuses. In Rockland, the campuses fill up, the classes fill up pretty much the day after registration opens to everybody.
So it's not a matter of enrollment filling up, but the classes just fill. Trying to get the classes,
Yeah.
So
And that's-
just like anywhere else.
And that's kind of a nature of somewhat of the beast of the community college world
Right.
in general, not Sierra College in particular, but in general, is because of that non-selective kind of admissions environment. They're going to take anybody who applies, but they might not necessarily have the class offered, maybe the exact class, maybe they're offering one section of the class that you need, and they might not have the seat for you, and it might push that off for another semester or something like that. But in terms of like academic enrichment in particular with our school in Sierra College in Truckee, I've only seen classes fill up maybe once or twice. Typically, like I would say the junior level English class is what I normally see fill up.
Yeah.
Because we're not just competing against our students, we're competing against Truckee, or not competing, but we're looking for seats with Truckee, with their actual college students as well. So, and we actually get the last seats in those classes. We're the last to get to register. But for the most part, I haven't seen them really fill up super quickly. The other side of the coin, though, too, is if you're not registering, sometimes they actually cancel the class if it's not full enough. So that's the other side of the coin. So that's why you don't want to necessarily wait too long to register, because they might cancel it. They don't know you're going to be in that class.
Yeah, we kind of walk that fine line between saying, yes, there's the flexibility to sign up late and still get in, but we really want you to register early. Because we did, this semester we did cancel 2 different classes that I know of because of low enrollment. And then I had students sitting in my office a week after class started saying, oh, I really need that class. And it's like, well, if you'd come a week ago, we could have actually offered it. So the earlier people register, the better. But there is still that flexibility. And the reason I mentioned the flexibility is because sometimes students maybe had a 4-year school that they really had their eyes on, and then they found out they didn't get into it. Well, there's still plenty of time to come take classes at Sierra College, in the fall if they wanted to. This is just to help students figure out where that placement tool is. If you go in admissions and the students are trying to figure out, well, which English class can I take based on my high school classes? You can come in and meet with a counselor to find that out. You can also talk to people at the front desk to find it out. But there is a tool on our website that's called the placement tool, which is what this button is here. And basically it asks you, what classes did you take in high school? What was your grade in the class? What was your overall GPA for high school? And then based on that information, it says, okay, we think you're ready for this level, math or English.
And enrichment students do have to place.
Yeah.
And we've had students not place into 1A, which would be kind of like your junior equivalent English course in particular. They would place into English A, which is essentially a 10-3-esque type remedial essentially course. And they have to take that before they can then enroll in 1A for that 11th grade class credit. Very rare, but it has happened.
Yeah, and those developmental courses are not transferable, so that college credit won't transfer on.
And we don't give credit for non-transferable college courses.
Here's some of the registration dates that are also on the handout over there. So you can see that registration for the spring and the summer is starting up.
Sorry, on what you just said. So let's say a student does do that and then they go into the remedial one. And then if they're a high school student, is that still free?
Yep,
Yeah,
you can still
okay.
take the class.
Yeah.
And it's just getting them ready so the next semester
Yeah,
they
so
could
the
take that
next
next
one.
one.
And it's definitely, if that's the case, when you don't place, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
It's basically, instead of you needing to take 2 semesters, it's basically doing our 2-year English process for the junior and senior year takes 1 year's time frame, 2 semesters length there. It basically just adds an extra semester to that time frame. ahead of when you're doing it. So it kind of depends on when you're also trying to take those classes. A lot of students will try to take them over the summertime, which is not a bad idea, but those are typically the classes that tend to fill up pretty frequently, or get like the summer ones are the most, I feel like the most in flux, because it's a less attended session, I think, by the college students in general, but it's also a higher high school student enrollment, I think, in those sessions.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's hard for students sometimes when they see that placement. And what I try to explain to them if they've placed in a developmental level course, is that your chances of succeeding in the other course are going to be greatly improved. Because what we don't want is students jumping into something that's too hard for them and then feeling like a failure because of that. So these are those registration dates. So for the academic enrichment, it's November 16th. For our new students that are not high school students, it's actually coming up here on the 12th, I think it is. And then currently enrolled students actually get to register before new students as well, and so they're already registering for classes now. Especially if a student wants to take an online class, those you do have to register for as soon as possible because they fill up really quickly. Because our online classes, you're competing with the 20,000 students down in Rockland to get into those.
We generally don't advise online college courses here. I've personally never seen a student actually get in, even if they wanted to. But it's also it's going to be a little bit different environment than just even an online course, like say through BYU or something like that. So we try to steer people towards the in-person class as much as possible, because that's usually what ends up happening anyways.
Yeah. Just in terms of paying for school, community colleges do use the FAFSA, the federal financial aid form as well, and do offer financial aid. Sometimes people think only the four-year universities have financial aid, but the community colleges do as well. And it's the same process. You fill out the FAFSA and then say that where you're going to school. They send that information to Sierra College, and then Sierra College will send you an offer of what they can help with in terms of financial aid. And it tends to be a mixture of things. Oftentimes there's grants, which is free money you don't have to pay back, and then oftentimes there's an offer of loans as well. And students can choose what of that they want to take. You don't have to take the whole package that's offered. You can take the grants and not take the loans, or however you want to do it. There's also in California, there's the Board of Governors fee waiver, and that is based on income. And if you qualify for that, all your tuition is free. And if you fill out the FAFSA and it shows you qualify for the Board of Governors, you automatically get the Board of Governors. But occasionally we'll have people who don't want to, for whatever reason, fill out the federal form, and you can fill out just the Board of Governors fee waiver form and get that form get that fee waiver without ever doing the whole federal end of things.
And the system-wide tuition is what, $46 a unit still?
Yes, it's $46 a unit, and then there's a student health center fee that I think is $14 or something like that. This is a picture of our front desk. One of the things I really recommend students is if you have any questions, or even if the student starts the registration process and they get confused, just come in. We have a whole set of computers right there by the front desk, and some wonderfully informed people that are right there to help out. And it's really common that students will come in, even students that are, ongoing continuing college students, and say, hey, can you help me with this FAFSA? And then somebody will sit down and help them right there on the computer. Can you help me register for these classes? And so if you have any questions at all, stop by the front desk and we can certainly help out. So a quick thing on other community colleges. As you can see, there's a lot of community colleges in California. There's 113 of them serving 2.1 million students in California. What I recommend students do if they're thinking about going to another community college is to go and visit that college and talk to the counselor at that college, because although the systems are very similar at all the colleges, there are some nuances and differences. And so it's best to get it from the horse's mouth and then talk to the college they're interested in. So we have a lot of students up here who, for instance, want to go to the coast. They're like, okay, I'm getting out of the mountains, I'm going to the beach. And so they'll head to some of the community colleges on the coast, which is great. The one thing I encourage people to also ask about is what agreements does the school have with other colleges? Because So for instance, our students can get automatic admissions as long as they meet a certain GPA into Chico, as long as they're on our campus, but not our Rockland campus students, and so because we're considered closer to Chico, and Sac State has an agreement with the Rockland campus, which actually also works for our students, which is nice. And so different places will have different agreements, and oftentimes students think that because a community college is next to a particular CSU or university, they have agreements, and that's not always the case. Usually it is, but it's not always the case. And I've had students who told me stories of being shocked by that. They thought for sure because they went here, they could get into the neighboring school, and it didn't work that way. So that's just something to know about the other community colleges. There are some California-wide programs in terms of transferring. For the UCs, there's something called the TAG, T-A-G, which is a transfer agreement guarantee. And that is a guarantee that a student can basically sign a contract with a particular UC. So they say, I've decided I want to go to UC Davis and I want to major in this, and I'm at Sierra College right now. Then they will fill out the paperwork and the agreement will say, you need to take these specific classes and you need to get this specific GPA. But if you fulfill your part of the agreement, you're guaranteed it. And so that's what the tag is, that guaranteed admission. And then with the CSUs, like Sac State and Chico, we have some of our degrees that are called associate degrees for transfer. So you'll see like AS/T or AA/T. And that is a program between the California community colleges and the CSU system. And the way that works is if you complete a degree that's a transfer degree, then you are guaranteed admission into one of the CSUs. Not necessarily the one of your choice, but you're guaranteed to get into one of them. But you also get some admissions preference to the one of your choice. So for instance, there's a GPA bump. Where they'll take whatever your GPA is and add a little bit to it to make you more competitive with other students. So there is some preferential treatment that you get. The other big thing with the AST degrees is if you complete that degree at a community college, then the CSU guarantees that you can graduate with your bachelor's degree only needing 60 credits more. So 2 years of full-time classes. And so that's a pretty nice guarantee.
In the same major, right?
Yes, in the same major, as long as
you're similar. You can't take a business degree and go into biology and probably graduate in that 2 years, I would guess.
Correct, yeah, you have to go into the major that your AST degree was in, your associate's degree for transfer was in, to have that guarantee. But that definitely can help graduate on time, which has become more and more of a challenge for people. So that's kind of the information I had to throw out there for you. What questions do you all have? Are there any other questions?
Does Sierra College do both the TAG program and the AST program?
Yes. Not all of our majors have ADT, the transfer degrees. But if you look through the catalog and you'll see, if you see a major that has AA or AS and then it has -T after it, then those are part of that program. And then yes, we do the TAG programs as well. Yeah.
So you don't have the fire science or EMT degrees at Sierra College?
We do at Sierra College, but you can't complete it on the Tahoe Truckee campus. You have to go to the Rockland campus for doing that.
But you can start things here and go down.
Right, and so a lot of students, what they'll do is they'll say they decide they just want to try it out and see if that's what they really want to do as college, but they want to live at home still while they're doing that. They'll come and they'll work on their general education credits, and then they'll go down to Rockland for their second year and finish up a lot of the major classes that we didn't have up here. Because to get your degree, it's a combination of classes in your major plus general education credits, and the total has to equal 60 credits. So sometimes there's electives as well that make that total of 60. So a lot of the general ed students can do up here, and then the majors on that list on the handout, they can complete the complete major without taking any classes anywhere else. And we do have the EMT class up here in Truckee.
And is that, there's a EMT, it's course 2, does that mean it's the second, you have to take one first or not?
No, it's just the course number for it. There's I think it's a CPR course that you have to sign up for at the same time. But yeah, that EMT class is a standalone. You would want to go onto the catalog and read. There are a bunch of other requirements for the EMT class that other classes don't have. For instance, one of them is drug testing, where other classes don't have that, the EMT class does. So there's some specific requirements for that class.
In the catalog, is there a separate spot you can look for online classes as well? Or
Yeah, so if you go on the website,
I can show you. Watch this.
bring it up on there, perfect. But you can filter the results.
or you can.
You can filter them by campus, you can filter online or not online. And so if you're looking for just the Tahoe Truckee campus ones, you want to do Tahoe Truckee campus, but then you also want to say on campus only or classroom only.
All right, so when you're up here, you see this class schedule link at the top.
Mhm.
All right, so when you, well, I have to change the tabs real quick. So let's do a new one. 1 second. Okay, so when you see here, you're going to enter a term. Okay, that's going to be whether, if we're looking at spring term,
Right.
for example, that's the next one coming up. You're going to select a campus. Okay, you can select distance learning, or you can select Tahoe. You can select Tahoe Truckee campus too, and it will show all the online options as well.
Okay.
And if you just select all, you can pick a subject if you're looking for an English class or a math class, whatever. You can hit search, but it'll give you every option, but you can also filter it out. Say, for example, this is an online class.
Oh,
you can't see
distance learning. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's kind of blurry. You
Yeah.
see distance learning. You can also go back though.
And just pick those.
Right.
Correct. So
Just
you
make
can
sure
filter
you-
out instructional method.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Yeah, or if you don't want to see all the online courses,
Say classroom.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and the one handout that has the green stripe on the top, that's our spring schedule for our on-campus classes here on the Tahoe Truckee campus.
So I had a few things from the high school side of it, and just extrapolate a little bit of the information to kind of expand it beyond Sierra College, because I know that, like you said, a lot of students do want to stay local, and that's kind of the design of the community college system. That's why there's so many of them across the state, is they're kind of supposed to be serving their local community ideally. But a lot of students do travel. So we have students that come from other places to Sierra College. And one thing that you didn't mention that I was surprised is Sierra College actually has dorms. Not up here in Truckee, but down in Rockland, they actually have dorms. They are competitive, so you have to register really early because there's not very many rooms. But it's fairly unique. There's only 2 or 3, I think, community colleges out of the 113 that actually have on-campus housing. Most students that live in or go to community college live off campus, either with a family, so that's why, again, that community feature of going to one near you, or off campus, wherever you end up, Santa Barbara, San Diego, LA, Santa Cruz, wherever. But that's a pretty cool feature about Sierra College, at least down in Rockland. So even if you did need to go down there for the second year of, say, a major, you could live on campus and have kind of that dorm experience. Which is that's something I think a lot of students really look forward to for college, is that kind of is the student life experience, which you can get a lot of the stuff at, even if a school doesn't have dorms, you can get all the clubs and everything like that. But there is something to be said a little bit about living, like when I remember college, dorms was a big part of that. It was something that I really enjoyed. I have friends that they were in my wedding, I was in their wedding, who I roomed with throughout college, both in the dorms and off campus. So, but that's a nice feature about Sierra College in particular, is their availability of dorms. But you do have to jump on that really early, like January.
I think there's only space for 140 students, and there's 20,000 on the campus, so it's definitely something you have to.
So there's that. The other thing, so from a high school perspective, academic enrichment, typically you're going to see primarily students, especially here, a little bit different in Truckee because it's so close. But primarily here, what we find is students are typically going to be starting to take classes usually the summer between their 10th and 11th grade year. That's usually also coincides with when they start getting their license and able to drive. Because most classes happen either once or twice a week in the fall and spring terms, and then 4 days a week, usually in the mornings for summer term. And the students typically have to go there those days. And the evening ones go anywhere from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, or some even like 6 to 8, maybe one time a week. So it varies depending on the class and their schedule each semester. But students typically do need to get up to Truckee, and that sometimes creates a logistical problem, especially if parents are working, if they don't drive yet. So and typically the coursework that we see that typically fits into what students are typically taking is that junior and senior level coursework. We like to say that any student can take classes 9 through 12, but usually the classes that align with where they're at in their educational process is usually in that junior, senior year, kind of that equivalent of AP Bio, AP English, that kind of thing. It's not to say that we'll deny anybody that wants to take something earlier, but it's usually, that's the developmental kind of time frame in most cases. In terms of seniors and going to like kind of becoming a full-time college student after graduation out of junior college, another nice feature about junior college is if someone does have, their heart set on a 4-year degree, if that's their goal or higher, or a particular 4-year college that maybe is a little bit more selective. Okay, someone who has higher requirements or higher expectations in terms of GPA, classes that you were taking, test scores, that kind of thing. One of the nice things that I talk to students about, and I want to share with you guys, is that they focus only on your high school experience. And maybe maybe you started at high school and it wasn't great, and then you kind of pulled it together and you had a stronger second half. Many times that first and second year can really kind of sink that opportunity at some of those selective colleges, because they do look at those years. And so sometimes students have oops, or maybe not as stellar moments in high school where they don't pass certain classes or they don't do as well as they hoped. The community college also plays a nice role in that maybe that student did mature in their junior or senior year, grew up a little bit, maybe changed some attitudes or ways that they were working. They can go to Sierra College, go to any of the 113 community colleges, and then they're not admitted based on their high school performance. They are now becoming transfer students, and they are admitted based on their community college performance. So you can have a student who barely graduates from high school but knows all their stuff and pulls off straight A's at the community college, and they're going to be admitted based on that.
So they don't even go back to look at high school?
Not typically, no.
No.
I've only seen very rare cases, and that's usually if you're applying to like uber selective schools or possibly private schools. Private schools are a little bit sometimes different. In private schools, you don't even have to necessarily complete a full 2 years. You can actually, I've seen students actually only complete 1 year of a JC, apply after that year, and kind of be admitted as essentially sophomore in college. And that's kind of rare, but
that's true for UNR as well. UNR, you only need to complete it, I think it's 25 credits, college credits, in order to transfer in. Whereas the California schools, you need to have completed 60 before you can transfer in.
Yeah.
So does Sierra have agreements with UNR to work as transfer student?
Yes, we don't have guaranteed admission types agreements like the tag, that kind of thing. But to be honest, UNR traditionally hasn't been very selective. And so it's pretty easy. I think the GPA requirement is a 2.0 and have done 24, 25 academic credits. The big place where GPA comes in with UNR is there's something called the WUI, which is the Western Exchange. And so that gives you in-state tuition, even if you live in California, and you have to have a 3.25 overall GPA in order to qualify for the WUI.
It'll give you 150% of in-state. So you're not quite in-state, but almost. And UNR is actually fairly inexpensive in terms of state schools. Like they're comparable to an in-state. Kind of halfway probably between a CSU and UC tuition rate. So it's a little more expensive because we're out of state, even though we live 5 minutes or 10 minutes over the border. But yeah, so that's something to think about too. Nevada also has, I mean, I'm not saying go out of state because you will be an out-of-state student for community college and tuition purposes, which can raise the costs. But we do have a number of students looking at like TMCC, which is just down the hill. So there are out-of-state options. It's usually not the first and foremost that I would suggest because there is additional cost being a California resident. So that's just something to consider with costs. But yeah, when you guys go through that process of transferring, you can like Christopher said, I always tell people are like, oh, what if they know I went to community college? And that's a horrible thing to say, first of all, because community college is a great option. There's no shame in going to community college. It's a wonderful opportunity for students to learn. They have just as good and many times, sometimes better offerings and coursework and professors and services that they offer than some of the larger institutions that are typically kind of more well-known. But like you said, when you graduate, if you go do that transfer path, no one's going to go back and say, your diploma doesn't say UC Berkeley, but I started at a junior college. It doesn't write that in there. It just says UC Berkeley or UC Davis or whatever you want to do. But it gives students kind of somewhat of a fresh slate. And that's something that I think gives students encouragement and parents encouragement too, is there's a lot of opportunities that can still become available to you, even if you had a rough time through high school. That happens to students all the time. And students can still, even if they got C's and B's and a couple D's or even an F here and there, like they can still go to college, they can still get a degree, they can still be highly successful. It just looks a little bit different. And the path is a little bit different, and that's totally fine. Okay.
So taking this sort of path, they technically wouldn't even need the SAT?
Nope.
Correct.
To transfer to a UC or a Cal State? And how would these transfer to like really out of state, like New York?
So it depends on the school. And so when I'm working with students who want to transfer out of state, I really encourage them to work closely with the school they want to transfer to.
Okay.
My experience has been that if one of our classes is transferable to both CSUs and UCs, then chances are it's going to be transferable out of state.
Yeah, that would be my same advice. And same thing like with our high school requirements. Like our high school and general entrance requirements to like our CS and UCs are kind of like our golden motto for high school, like meeting those A through G requirements for your college students that are down that way. But if a student wanted to go to the University of Utah or UNR or another out-of-state institution or even a private institution, they might set different requirements that says, hey, you know what? You can get into a CSU with only 2 years of foreign language, but this institution might require a bare minimum of 3. And so that's something that, we can't keep track of all the different requirements in different states. So if you have other interests of like, hey, I kind of think I might want to go there, getting a head start and thinking about that and using that frame of reference is always a good idea, because that will kind of give you a little bit more guidance, especially if it's going to be a more rigorous is not the right word, but a higher requirement than we might push a student to do, or a student might naturally want to do here in California. The other thing is definitely do the FAFSA. Okay, the FAFSA, like I believe, it doesn't matter if you make $1 million, you make no money, do the FAFSA. It's something that you will, even if you don't qualify for money, you might find they might find money somewhere. Okay, and even if you don't, if you do have to take out loans, you're going to qualify for lower interest rate loans from the government. And so that's something that you can't have access to if you don't fill it out. The good news, some people talk to me about, well, I'm concerned about the government having my information. The good news is they already have it. It's from so you're not divulging any information that they don't have already if you're following the law and you report your taxes. But so I don't want, there's a lot of fear sometimes that comes with it. I don't want you guys to be fearful of filling out the FAFSA. It's actually a very simple form. It actually made it even easier this year. So just remember that the FAFSA for you seniors and going forward, it actually has been open since October 1st. Okay, and they're actually using 2 years back tax information. Okay, so seniors that are graduating this year, you're going to be using 2015 taxes. Okay, if you had a senior last year, you also would have been using 2015 taxes. Okay, so they actually moved from a prior year to a prior year is what they call it. Okay, so that's a very important thing to know. But you can actually
fill it out now then.
Yep. So you can get it 100% completed now, and that's nice. Where in years past you couldn't even start until January 1st, and then you had to actually most people, if you're normal, had to guess on your tax information if you wanted to submit it early, because no one has their tax. You don't get your W-2s back before the end of like January or mid-February. So this change is a very positive change because it gives you more time to submit it. Plus, you don't have to guess or estimate and go back and change it, so you can get your answers much more quickly, hopefully, from colleges. This is the first year this is happening, so we're not entirely sure. I don't think colleges, both 2-year and 4-year, are entirely sure what that's going to look like and the time frame for getting those money kind of those reports back about financial aid. But I firmly believe that no matter if a student actually decides I want to go to college or what level I want to go to college at, everybody who's in high school should submit the FAFSA, because you might change your mind later. You might not get into one school and I can afford this, but then you change your mind. No, I can't afford this anymore. So I highly encourage you, and most people do if they're thinking about college, but there's always one or two that say, well, we make too much money, or I'm not really going to college, and then you change your mind. And kind of you can work yourself out of some money if you wait. So I highly encourage you guys to do the FAFSA. It's a very easy process. It actually links directly to the IRS, so it takes a lot of the process even out. And it's a very, very simple, well thought plan to put in place. And students, you are the one that actually starts the process. Okay, so you're the one that starts the FAFSA. When it says I, it's referring to the student. It's not referring to the parent. or the parent portion of it, that it's going to be asking for parent finances and stuff like that, but that's something that I highly encourage you, because you will get money at the junior college level. The other thing that I'll let you guys know is the junior college is typically, any of them, will typically be cheaper. But that's not always the case. Okay, so sometimes people say, well, I'm going to go to junior college only because it's cheaper. And for many people, that is true, but not for everybody. So I'd highly, if you're choosing where you're going strictly based on finances, okay, if that's the only thing, I would highly suggest just spreading out your applications, putting your name in, because sometimes depending on your financial situation, that's where it gets kind of complicated. It's based on everybody's individual taxes and financial status. It can sometimes actually be cheaper to go to a state school or a four-year college.
Because of grants you get.
Yep, grants and other, it's fairly complex, so I'm not going to go into the details of it, but some, I would say, 1 out of 25 people that we work with, many times it ends up sometimes being like that, where you don't know what it's actually going to cost until you get your financial aid package back, and that's after you've been admitted at the four-year college level, and even gone through the application and enrollment process at the junior college level. So you don't know how much anything is going to cost until we put our name in. Okay, so I highly encourage you guys, if the finances are strictly the only thing kind of preventing us from saying, I want to try to go to a four-year school, put your name in there and see. You can always say, no, I don't want to go there after you've applied and been admitted, or you can see the finances and say, yeah, it's too much money, or I can afford that, but I still rather go here. You can always change, like by applying, you're not committing anywhere unless you do early decision.
Does the FAFSA need to be redone every year?
Yes, so the FAFSA is an every single year process for every single student that you have in college at that time, or rising senior through high school. So, and it will be opening October 1st every year at this point forward. Yep.
Can you put your 16 information in once you have it?
No, so this school year, so the graduating seniors this year, they will only be considering the 2015 tax year. Okay, which some people love that fact, some people really hate that fact. It kind of depends on how your year went. The good news is that if you had in terms of like getting money for, typically if you're getting money, that means you had a pretty good year. And if you're like, or if you're not getting money, you had a good financial income year. If you're going to get money from financial aid, it usually means you didn't make a ton of money. And so that's kind of the bad side, but the good side. The good news is if you had a not so great 16 and you're going to get some more financial aid, that's going to happen the following year. So it's still going to come. It's just a little bit delayed. If you have, so with both junior college and four-year college and financial aid, if you've had and this is something that's going to be new this year too, if you've had significant changes as well. So say for example, you did have a awesome 2015 where you made a ton of money, but then 2016 you took a profit loss and you made no money. That's a significant change in income and significant change in finances available. While you cannot add that to your FAFSA in particular, what you can do is you can call the schools. You will have to call them all individually, and you can ask. You can request for what's called professional judgment, explain your situation, and schools have the option. The financial aid department has the option to take that into account at some level. That doesn't mean that they're going to say, well, you have a $20,000 bill and now you're going to have nothing, no bill. But oftentimes they're not unreasonable. They will work with you. They might be able to pull together a grant here or some extra loan money that's unsubsidized versus subsidized. They're going to work with you as best they're able to. Typically, I don't see magic happen, but it's better than nothing. But it does take a little bit of work.
The other thing I'll throw out there is there are a lot of scholarships that are outside of the FAFSA program. So the Rotary Club or somebody offers a scholarship. If you go to the financial aid tab in our Sierra College website, there's right now listed, I think, 112 different scholarship options or something like that. And a lot of them are very specific in terms of the criteria, but with so many of them out there, lots of times you can find something that meets whatever the criteria is. And I would say at least once a semester, I get an email from some local organization saying, please have students apply. We have the scholarship money and nobody's applied for it yet. And if nobody applies for it, they don't give it out. Because I'll have students say, no, I didn't apply for any scholarship because I would never win it, right? I'm not the best student. I'm not the best essay writer, whatever it is. If you're the only one that applies, you win it. So definitely there's plenty of money out there in that way as well. And oftentimes those are small, $500 here, $1,000 here, but that adds up pretty quick. And that can be really helpful.
Yeah, and say like when you're typically for us, like our local, like Rotary and stuff like that, we have our and Rotary's going to typically be like a local thing. So you might be able to apply for a Rotary scholarship here, but then you might also be able to apply for a Rotary scholarship through Sierra College or your university that you might be attending. For our local and kind of regional scholarships, that typically is going to be, most of them fall into your senior year. So like they're only going to request applications from seniors in many scenarios. And usually they kind of, in terms of the year, they start kind of really coming around pretty soon. So like just like Thanksgiving to December is kind of when we start seeing them start showing up in our office. We have a couple of local ones that kind of are direct local area that actually run through our school. They usually come out right in the new year, and those are all for seniors as well. But if students apply to that, they're almost, I would say those organizations, at least our two main local ones, pretty much every student that applies will probably get some money at some different levels. From, we've had students earn $30,000 to $500 or $250, but anything is worth that. Okay, so I tell students, like, well, I don't know, it's going to take me an hour to write this essay. And I say, pay me $250 an hour, I'll write you anything you want. And many times it's more than that. You make $1,000 and it took you 2 hours, it's $500 an hour. Most people don't make $500 an hour. People die for that money. Okay. The only other thing I'll mention is, the process. So in terms of us, so like Christopher said, we have kind of have the time frame for, and the application is open for fall. Like when they go through the application process, can they apply at any time throughout the year? Is there a specific time frame when, the registration is not till April, but when can they actually start going to that green button and applying?
They can start that now.
Yeah. So it's usually about fall through the kind of that fall through the next fall of their kind of senior year. But starting that sooner, and the common thing that I see with seniors in particular, and across all levels, four-year career, trade schools, but in particular, I notice it more in the students that are going to be planning on attending junior college, is they wait. They wait way too long. Okay, and like Christopher said, they wait, many times they might not even apply until April, and then that registration has been open for a couple of weeks, and they might not get in those classes. So actually what we're going to be doing is next week on Thursday, this is particularly for seniors, but next week on Thursday, Christopher's going to be coming back in the morning during our RTI session, and we're going to be inviting students in here to actually go through the application process, so we can work with them to make sure that they actually fill it out correctly, they get all the way through, and started on that process. And the nice thing is, you can always, you don't necessarily have, with the four-year college, like I said, it's a selective admissions process. So you're going to need 5 or 7 different schools. Junior college, like I said, the goal is you want to do the research and pick which one is best for you. You do not need to apply to 3 or 4 different junior colleges. You can, but the best thing is do the research, visit, ask the questions, pick which school you'd like to attend, and go for the registration there. Okay, you can always apply for another one later, but do the research because you're not going to get denied. Okay, so that saves you time, energy, and effort. But it's always nice to have something in your back pocket as well. So even if you are planning on going to four-year college, that's not a guaranteed process. Okay, so it's always nice to say, you know what, I've got one thing done, I've got something in the bag ready to go, even if something else doesn't work out. And for those students, if that's the option, we can get, basically probably about a half of the way, kind of time-wise, through the process in 45 minutes on Thursday.
That's great.
Will that cover all of the?
Yep, you can come and apply to any of those. It's a very similar process. They actually go through the CCC Apply website, and it looks a little bit different on each school, but essentially it's the same. Essentially the same process, and I can help with anybody through that process. They just need to bring their computer.
Are you doing that with all the seniors?
Any senior that wants to come. So they have. I can't make them come. They have to show up. So yes, that's Thursday next week, 7:30, right here. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, junior college. Okay, there's a lot of intricacies and minute details that might be campus specific, and that's why it's very important. But there's 113 out there, and everyone might have a little bit of a small way of doing things or a different time frame that they want things done. So that is why it's very important to do the research on their websites. Different schools have different quality websites as well. You may have experienced that with four-year college or two-year colleges. Some are easier to digest. Others are like, I don't even know what's going on here. This is from 1995. So you have to kind of do a little digging sometimes. But the nice thing is you can always either pick up an email or pick up the phone and make a call to their office. I call Diane at their front office all the time. And we talk, and Christopher and I email quite a bit and get stuff set up for stuff like this. We have questions about, when does this open? Like, did this close? Stuff like that. And it's very easy. And students, they have just the same experience of picking up the phone. And I do encourage the student to pick up the phone and call. Make them be the point of contact if they have questions. And the same thing if you're like trying to get transcripts. Oftentimes seniors, maybe they took an academic enrichment course, an English 1A. They're probably going to have to send their transcripts to wherever they're applying as well. So they will still need to get some of that information, even if they're not going to be enrolling there in the fall. They need to still stay in touch so they can order transcripts either through their MySierra account or with some help over there, or through my help as well. Does anybody have any questions in particular about Sierra College, about the junior college process, or anything that you guys are wanting to know right now? This is the time.
I just came up with a question. So if your student took a course already at Sierra College like that, I thought there was something that I filled out or some deadline that English 1A already went to his transcript.
So I guess there's two different, so maybe let me clarify that, because there's two different transcripts. So because the academic enrichment courses, those courses we do allow dual credit for. So we need the transcripts here. So that's likely what I'm guessing you're talking about, is that we need that official transcript to come to us to be able to give you high school graduation credit for it. So it goes on your transcript, and that's the deadline that I set. So that was back in October, I think, and we needed all those transcripts so we can lock down the senior transcripts so we can send them all out and then reopen them again in January. They will also, if you're going to another college, they're not going to take our transcripts as golden. Okay, so that's common anywhere. Okay, if you take college, even if you're going from a transfer student, they need official transcripts from those colleges. So you request this.
Like tomorrow, we'll need to send transcripts from Sierra to.
Yep.
Wherever she's
Yep.
applying.
Almost all four-year colleges, if you're looking at four-year college and you took like a couple classes here or there. Same thing with many online programs. It really depends on the school. It depends on what they're asking for. Some schools will take stuff that we put on our transcript as kind of, this is the fact. When you're looking at receiving college credit for classes, though, they usually want the official. If you're like took BYU for a class that's only for high school credit, and we put it on our transcript, 9 times out of 10, they're like, that's good. We're not giving you credit. We're just going to trust that the high school did it correctly. If they're going to be giving you credit for either AP scores, that's why they request official AP scores, or college classes, they're going to want to see those official transcripts directly to the institution. Good question. Any other questions? You always have access to me. You have access to Christopher tonight, so this is a great time if you do have questions. But again, feel free to reach out to us over email, over phone. Thank you guys for coming. If you know people that should have been here, okay, and they weren't, or other students that maybe needed to see some of this information, let them know that this is already on YouTube. They can go onto the North Tahoe High School YouTube page and watch it. Fast forward through all the boring bits and get to the pieces that maybe you need to know. And then invite any students, especially seniors, next week on Thursday during RTI. Okay? Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
See ya.
Feel free to stop by and ask questions at our campus as well. If you haven't been over there, it's a beautiful spot.